Cool. Oopsies. All right, awesome. Good morning, everyone. Again, thank you for joining me today for this nutrition webinar Q&A session. It's presented by the 21-day Alive and Thrive program between Markham Yoga and I, Sarah Tivity. So some of the questions you guys submitted today will be answered here. If not, feel free to send me, your questions over in the chat, or you can email to me your questions and I can answer them in the next webinar. All right, let's get started. So a quick little agenda about what we're going to be talking about. Just a quick little introduction about myself. Some of you may know me, some may not know me, and I'll answer some of the submitted questions from the Q&A. Cool. So again, hey everyone, my name is Sarah. I'm an energetic holistic nutritionist, health coach, fitness instructor, and a corporate wellness specialist. I like to incorporate all aspects of one's life to help my clients be well, eat well, and obviously live well. So they all come hand in hand. So during this fitness program that we've been doing, it's a part of encompassing the be well and the live well. And then now we're adding that eat well piece to, make it complete. Awesome. So a little bit about myself. Like I mentioned, I am a fitness instructor, which you guys have experienced during those classes so far. I am also a nutritionist, and I do corporate wellness talks for my corporate clients. So employee engagement, trying to keep a workplace healthier, and also take one-on-one and group coaching clients. So if you guys ever are interested in a free nutrition consultation, you are more than welcome to book one with me, and we can get deeper into some of the topics that you might want to talk about for yourself or just in general about nutrition. All right. Energetic. I'm just a bubbly person. That's why I added to the topic that I'm energetic, holistic nutritionist, just my personality to give it a little bit of a, some personality. Cool. All right. So without further ado, let's hop into question number 1. So someone asked me, I have the biggest sweet tooth. How can I curb those cravings, or what would be some of the healthier options? Huge question. So I'm going to try to brief it today as much as I can and keep it simple. But essentially, cravings have a lot to do with something I call the blood sugar roller coaster. I don't know if some of you have seen this diagram before or not, but essentially, every single person has one of this. Okay, the blood sugar roller coaster, or the blood sugar itself. So every time you eat, your blood sugar is affected by the food you have, and therefore can cascade into some of those cravings, which I'll further explain in a moment. But let's just explain this quickly. So when you have a simple carb or sugar or a white bread, what happens to your blood sugar is that it spikes up, right? It's so easily digestible that once you eat it, it's like, whoop, let me just digest it really quickly. And you're at this high peak where my blue dot is. And the thing about being more digestible is that you use it up pretty quickly as well, right? You utilize that energy from that food really quickly, from that white bread, that carb, that pasta or sugar, and then you eventually feel that steep crash. Okay, so simple sugars are not very good sustainable source of energy. So essentially, you spike, you feel very energized. All of a sudden, you're like, "Whoa, I feel really good," and then boom, you're like, within like an hour or two, you're like, I'm exhausted. What is going on? And at that moment, you're like, okay, I need an afternoon pick me up. So I'm going to reach for that caffeine, that cup of coffee, or that, high carby, simple carb food. Could be that bread. It could be that cracker. It could be, I don't know, a fruit, something like that. And it brings your energy back up. Okay. And then you dip again. So you come into this very vicious cycle of your blood sugar going up and down. And to answer that question about your, craving and sweet tooth, it's essentially that we're on this ride. Okay, we're on this joyride of up and downs. So what we really want to kind of curb those cravings and have a healthy metabolism that would, not lead to certain chronic diseases like diabetes is to sustain this green line on this chart. Okay, don't worry. I know this chart might look a little complicated, but I'll simplify it for sure. So again, this green line on this chart indicates a well-balanced diet. So when you're eating a well-balanced diet that consists of your proteins, your carbs, your healthy fats, and fiber, it's going to look more like this green line, and you're going to feel less of that sugar craving and that energy dip per se. So that's what we call the optimum blood sugar. So when you're on this blood sugar, this red line, that's when you're more likely going to experience that sugar craving, as well as higher cortisol level production, which is your stress hormone. All right. So also indicated here, the red line is considered something called a refined diet. So a lot of processed foods, a lot of, not so good oils, like, frozen dinners, things like that. Junk food could lead you to be on this red line. So how can we curb this blood sugar roller coaster and curb these cravings, and especially sugar cravings? There you are, is to eat something called the magic plate. All right, so we're talking a lot about balance here, and how eating the optimum diet or the well-balanced diet can prevent you from being on that red line and reduce your cravings, is to make sure every meal looks a little bit like this. Okay, it doesn't have to be a plate, it could be a bowl, it could be a smoothie, whatever it is, but essentially it's just making sure that you have all the essential nutrients that you need in one meal. So for instance, making sure you have a third of your plate with that high quality, healthy protein. So examples here, there's nuts and seeds for a vegetarian option, chickpeas, eggs, your typical meats, salmon, turkey, chicken, whatever it is, to have a portion of that on your plate every single meal. And then a portion of vegetables. And some examples here could be absolutely anything and everything. So we've got, your broccoli, your carrots, any veggies you can name, essentially, dark leafy greens, celery, asparagus, things like that, peas. And lastly, again, you can have your grains, right? You can have your grains, your rice, your pasta, your potatoes, and your starchy veggies would be sweet potato, squash, your regular potatoes. And lastly, 1 to 3 tablespoons of healthy fats. And that could be from your, good quality cold pressed olive oil. It could be avocado oils. It could be even from those nuts and seeds from your cooking. So I know a lot of times you could have mixed dishes, right? Like stir fries or curries or, slow cooker meals, whatever. But making sure that we just have these portions in it will really benefit you and prevent you from being on that roller coaster and that dramatic energy dip and sugar craving. So that's one way to curb that sugar craving. And number 2 might seem very basic, but always back to the fundamentals, is staying hydrated. So a lot of people get asked, how much water is enough, right? You hear like 1 liter, 2 liters, whatever it is. But this little equation here is quite a good baseline to fall off of. So right, what it is your body weight in pounds divided by 2 gives you ounces. All right, so 8 ounces equals 1 cup. So if you divide, your 120 pounds divided by 2, 60 ounces a day, 120 pounds. So then you can divide that by 2 cups, and you'll get how many cups or liters you need in a day. So typically it'll be somewhere between maybe 1.5 to 2.5 or 3, depending on your weight. But honestly, if you stay hydrated, you're going to keep your blood sugar way more leveled. And a lot of us just don't drink enough water these days. So, making sure you have a glass per meal or first thing when you wake up would be a really good way to get started in having more water throughout your day. So these are just 2 ways that you can kind of combat that sugar craving, and, prevent that sweet tooth. And a lot more along the way of our questions will kind of add on to this concept as well. All right. So question number 2, someone asked me, are carbs bad for you? So my first response would be no, they're not. But there's always a but to this, is carbohydrates as a category, it's a macronutrient, something we need. It in itself is not bad for you. Okay. But it's more so the types of carbs that you consume and the way it's been processed that might not be so good for you. So going back to this carb concept, right? A lot of people would think about, rice, potatoes, starch, pasta. Those are the first thing that comes to mind. It's like bread are carbs. But little do we know, or some of you may know, is that vegetables are also a carb, right? Vegetables, dark leafy greens, fruits, those are all different types of carbs. So it's more about how they've been processed. So the whole form of carbs, like veggies and fruits, are great for you. They're high nutrients and whatnot, but the processed version, so let's just say that, you know, uh, frozen dinners or, you know, white bread or white rice, things like that are not the best type of carbs, but in moderation is, you know, okay for sure. So to break it down a little bit, this is just a quick little general list, not limited to what's on here, but just to give you an example, some of the good guys, we call them the complex carbs. So they're complicated because they take your body a longer time to digest them, which is better for you. So in this sense, we want complicated carbs or complex carbs, such as veggies, your whole grains, your legumes, your beans, your chickpeas, things like that for the legumes. Starchy veggies, so again, sweet potato, potatoes, squash, those are all great, right? Just following that magic plate, making sure that, you know, just doing a 1/3 of a portion of it will help balance out that blood sugar and cravings. The not so good guys mentioned, we call them the simple carbs, right? They're really simple because the second they enter your body, you digest them very quickly. And then you get that, you know, slight burst of energy, but you crash very quickly as well. So not very sustainable for your, you know, throughout the day. So those would be, you know, white bread, white pasta, potato chips, deep fried batters, juice and sugar on its own. So like white sugar, brown sugar, things like that. Kind of brings, you know, cause those cravings and also weight gain eventually if we have too many of those things. So again, I don't call them the bad guys because they're just not so great. You know, most of us do consume this on a, you know, on moderation. So it's just learning how to balance things out. Awesome. All right. So question number 3, we have 6 to cover today. Is it bad to eat too much protein? I like protein shakes and bars as well as Greek yogurt, but don't know if it's all that good in one day. Good question. Protein is always a complicated answer. People are like, oh, I don't want to have too much. I don't have too little. So what's the good baseline is, again, based on your body, really. So your daily protein needs is very special, you know, specific to your weight again. So for example, the typical equation is 0.8 grams per kilograms or to 1.5 grams per kilograms. It really depends on what your goals are, but maintenance preferably is to make sure that you at least have that 0.8 per gram per kilogram to sustain proper muscle synthesis, your energy level. Again, going back to energy, protein is great for energy and mood balance and, you know, metabolism and sustaining your satiety, so your fullness throughout the day. So for example, your 55 kilograms, multiply that by 0.8 is that you want to have at least 44 grams of protein per day. And going back to the question, right, Greek yogurt, shakes and bars, you can check out your label, right? Like a protein shake could be ranging from 20 to 27 grams of protein. So for, you know, that would be half a day's worth, right? But again, it's more of a range. So this is the lower end. If you multiply 55 by 1.5, you'll be at a much higher range, right? You'll be over your 55 and plus kilograms of grams of protein per day. And that would be someone maybe trying to build more muscle, or even for people that are recovering from illness, right? You need more protein to rebuild that body. So on the higher end of that protein per day would be actually better for you. And revisiting again back to that magic plate or the blood sugar roller coaster, when you have protein with a carb like these guys, it's going to slow the digestion of these carbohydrates, right? So eating these simple carbs like bread and pasta with a protein, so like, I don't know, a pasta with meat in it or with a nice olive oil drizzle, that's going to help slow down the pasta and prevent you from that, you know, energy crash, you know, that food coma that we get into after we eat a big meal. All right. So again, this is recorded. If you want to write this down or screenshot, up to you, but it's also recorded. You can refer back to it afterwards. And leading on to question number 4, various healthy snacks, good quick snacks or on the go. So plenty of options. Again, create a quick little list, not limited to what's just on here, but these are just some options to kind of start off of. But all these snacks are based on, again, balancing your energy, balancing out that blood sugar roller coaster, or preventing us from being on it. So for an example, hummus dip plus carrots and celery. Hummus is great. It's got some healthy carbs. It is a complex carbs, but also hummus from chickpeas, very high in protein. So this would be a really nice combo to, feel fuller and feel more energized after eating it. And for those with the sweet tooth, right? Frozen fruits, great options. Munching on that versus candy would be better or more ideal. I won't read all of them, but again, you can see that there's options, right? You don't have to sway away from dark chocolate or your typical snacks. What is a good sugar level in a protein bar? Yeah, a good sugar level in a protein bar would be anything under 5 grams or 3 grams, sorry. 3 to 5 grams is okay. But also ratio wise, right? Look at the bar. You can go back to that magic plate and compare. Is it at least 1/3 of the bar is protein? And then there's some healthy fats, and lower on the sugar end would be better. But that could be for another conversation. The carbohydrate category isn't so much what you want to look at, is more of the sugar section, because fiber is a good kind of carbohydrate that is okay to be on the higher end for a protein bar per se. Good question, Kim. All right. So again, you can screenshot or you can see this, look at this presentation later on for some of the other ideas. But essentially, applying that magic plate concept to your snacks would be really helpful for sustaining that craving and energy level. All right. To circle back again for this question over here for the protein, there is something called too much, right? Sorry, I didn't answer this portion. Is when you're having too much protein, you're going to have trouble passing stool. It's going to be much harder and uncomfortable, maybe even gas. Especially having animal protein products, they create a lot of nitric acid. So it's going to create a lot of acidity in the body and cause irritated bowels per se. So that would be good indication if you're having way too much protein on a daily basis. Yes, like my hummus doesn't end up turning into hummus. Yes. Yes, Irina. Love that. Awesome. Next question is, what are some meal prep ideas? So that's another question that I got in terms of meal prepping. Oops. Here are just some pictures that I've done before. I just want to show you that meal prepping doesn't need to be very complicated. A lot of the work can be done by your oven or one pot mixes, one pan mixes, or even just bowls. So just kind of focusing on this idea, going back to our magic plate from the beginning of 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. So if you look at this picture right here of this chicken quinoa looking bowl, right? Your 1/3 over here is that chicken portion, right? And then beans also have a good source of protein, but that's also your starchy veggie. So sometimes foods can be part of 2 categories, right? It can be part of that protein category, the carb, and has fats in it. What are some tips you have for couples and families that are feeling the heat due to many cooks being in the kitchen at the same time? Yeah, honestly, communication, right? When you have too many people in the kitchen helping out, you can be like, hey, are you cool with doing the cutting? Are you cool with doing, the pan work on this side? So kind of splitting up the task might be helpful for collaborative cooking. Any tips for collaborating in the kitchen? Yeah, again, making sure that we communicate, maybe playing out the meal, or one person at a time if it's a crowded kitchen. That can be helpful for, feeling overwhelmed in the kitchen setting. All right. So again, going back to this bowl, right? There's some really nice greens here. Got Brussels sprouts, broccoli. I think there's avocados hiding there maybe. And that would be your healthy fats. So eating this meal, compared to just having a big bowl of pasta or rice per se, with just a little bit of, sauce or dressing on it, is going to make you feel way more full. Your energy level is going to be much higher, and the likelihood of you feeling hungry afterwards is going to be lower. So I'm sure some of you may have experienced, but after the big meal of, rice or big bowl of pasta, you end up feeling that little tiredness, right? I'm tired, and then you end up craving something sweet afterwards. Like, oh, I just had a big meal, but somehow I still want more food. So that's your blood sugar showing you that it's digesting the food really quickly, and then you hit that kind of crash on that roller coaster picture, if you remember from it. Junk food if you want to be good, vice versa. I'll answer that one in the second arena. And then over here, we've got a nice stir fry, right? Like, again, you can do one pot mixes. Some people think, oh my God, if I had to cook all three different categories of protein, carbs, and fats, it could get really complicated. But something like mixed potatoes and veggies would give you that healthy starch and veggies. You got, some steak bites in the middle, that would be a protein. And then again, a good quality, healthy cooking oil like cold pressed avocado, cold pressed olive oil. Those are much better cooking oil options. And mainly because oils or fats are very easily damaged by heat, air, and light. So a lot of basic vegetable oils or canola oils, they actually become damaged when they're cooked. So they're not, then they become the not so great fats, right? So just switching over your oils could be a very great way to benefit your health in the long run. Again, this is a Buddha bowl that I made on my own version. Same thing, list some of the things that's in it that can be good for sustainable energy and meal prep ideas. So for those that enjoy planning, really meal prepping is less about the food first. It's more about that planning. Some people like to make a chart. So you can give yourself a takeout day in this example. And then just planning for the week, right? Every day we're making something different, and making sure that you have a plan before you go grocery shopping is a great way to, add to your success of making good meals in the kitchen. So, you're not making like a chicken Thai curry and you didn't buy any chicken or veggies. So kind of making sure you have those ingredients on hand would be helpful and making a more successful meal. Again, another example of how simple meal prepping can be is making batch cooking, right? You can do a bunch of chicken thighs or, whatever protein you choose to, 2 big trays of veggies and potatoes, and that stuff's going to last at least 5 days in your fridge. And you can portion it out, grab and go, and to prevent, in that state where you're really hungry, you have something on hand already where you don't have to prepare. Awesome. All right, so next slide, again, some easy meal prep ideas. Again, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Some people, you don't necessarily need to prep every single meal. You can pick one to start. It can get really overwhelming if you try to do all at once, and you're gonna end up just not wanting to do it ever again. So what is your most important meal to you that you need to prep? Like for some or most might be dinner, because that's when all the family have food together or whatnot. Then maybe just plan for dinner, and then breakfast and lunch to keep it more simple. Right? You can do things like overnight oats, have it already ready, grab and go in the morning time, efficient, and don't have to take too much time. And again, most of these, they seem very simple, but again, they fall under that magic plate, right? Like overnight oats, if you deck it out a little bit, the oats are good fiber, good carbs. You throw in some nuts and seeds, you throw in some berries, like that's going to make it more complete than just oatmeal on its own. Cool. So yeah, again, stir fries, slow cooker options, one pot things can be very easy and convenient to do. And then obviously lunch, there's some soup options and whatnot. All right. So going back to Irina, like what if your partner is in a junk food mood, but you want to be good, or vice versa? How do you order in and satisfy both moods? So let's just say we're thinking, junk food. It could be fried chicken and whatnot. How about we can add a side of steamed veggies, or you can add a side of a healthy vegetable stir fry or baked veggies on the side to kind of balance it out a little bit. So instead of just saying no more fried chicken or no more junk or whatever that junk is to you, just add to it. How can we make it more magical per se? How can we add that, 1/3 veggie, 1/3 healthy carb, 1/3 high quality protein, right? Just to make it more complete would be a really nice thing to do. So per se, if you're having a rice dish on the side, you can always steam some veggies to add to it to make it more complete. And then you have your fried chicken on the side with it. Then it wouldn't make you just eat the whole meal of fried chicken. You'll also be eating some veggies and also be eating some grains, and you can balance out that, good and the bad per se. Um, but yeah, essentially, if you're ordering out together, right, you can always order from two different places. Sometimes I crave a freshie bowl and my partner doesn't. He wants something else, then we can order separate things. You don't always have to eat the same thing to be eating together. Cool. Hope that answers the question. And yeah, that's about it. I kind of flew through this. Let me know if I was speaking too quickly or something you want to go back and for me explain a little more clearly. But essentially, some key takeaways from this presentation that you can start implementing today or after this call is you now understand curbing sugar cravings, right? The concept behind the why. You're no longer be like, oh my God, why do I just always crave sugar? Maybe it's because your meals are not as balanced as they could be, right? And now you have a little bit of a more understanding of carbs, knowing that they're not always the bad guys. It's a little bit of both, right? There's good guy carbs and then the not so good guy carbs. Now you understand more about your daily protein intake. How much protein do I really need to build muscle or to sustain bodily function? And then some healthy snack options and a little bit of a meal prep sheet, so you can pick a recipe and search on Google or Pinterest. There's lots of good recipes out there that are easy and simple. And my quick little tip to you is don't try to do all of this, right? Everything that we talked about today, there's a lot going on. Pick one that resonates with you most. So if we've been talking, you'd be like, whoa, I think I really don't drink enough water. Then maybe let's start on that water concept. Let's just do one thing at a time. Let's do water for 1 week. And then you'll be like, oh, I'm starting to feel a little better. Maybe you can add in a little more, add in that veggies for each of the meals, whatever that veggie may be. So little steps. Awesome. Thanks, Ramesh, for the great comment. I'm glad you appreciate the session. I'll answer your question in a sec, Irina, but yeah, that is basically the wrap to the presentation. Thank you again. And again, I'm always interested in more Q&As. So if you have more questions after we talked about this presentation, feel free to email them to me. I'm hoping I can answer more of your questions during our 21 days. So week 3, the last week, next week, I'll also do one more closing presentation on nutrition so that you guys can kind of have a well-rounded program of fitness and understanding more about how fitness and nutrition kind of tie into each other. And thank you for joining. If you want to stay a little more, I'm just going to answer Irina's questions and then we're out of here. All right, so Irina said, what are some reasons couples, families struggle to decide what to eat, cook for dinner or order in? So yeah, those are pretty big questions. I can briefly mention it, but I can add it to the next webinar as well. But again, everyone's taste buds are a little bit different. So it's just learning to know what everyone likes. And it'll save you a lot of pain, I guess, if you can find recipes that have a little bit of both. Like sometimes, that meal is not going to be the perfect meal for your family member, but it's perfect for you, right? Where can we find those compromises and maybe doing a meal plan together, right? Not just one person's job, but collectively doing it. And that might be helpful for, preventing some of those stressful moments in the kitchen, which I'm sure everyone can relate to. Yeah, and one thing made a good point here, Irina, hangriness. Hangriness is not the best time to make decisions. So if you're hangry and going to the grocery shop, you're not going to buy the right things. So making sure you eat beforehand and planning is key. I can also definitely touch base on that next session about how we can be more successful with meal prepping and grocery shopping. That's something we can absolutely discuss as well. Yeah, awesome. Cool. Any other questions? I'm going to take note of everything that are in the chat today and kind of add on to the next week's presentation. And again, this will be sent back to you guys as well, and you can review it on your own. And if you have more questions, feel free to email me. That is that. Awesome. Glad it's helpful. Thank you for joining, everyone. Really appreciate it. Let's stop my screen share.